I need you tonight. It's urgent. Please. The message burned on Kang Jun-seok's screen at 12:47 a.m. He read it again. Not the words themselves. Words were cheap in his line of work, but the desperation bleeding through them. Raw, unfiltered, real. At 36, Jun-seok had learned to recognize manipulation in all its forms. This wasn't it. Outside his top-floor office, the Han River glittered like spilled diamonds, the city below a chessboard he'd already won. They called him the Auditor in Seoul's underworld. Not because he counted money, but because he calculated consequences. He ruled through information, pressure applied where bones broke without bruises showing. People didn't text him like this, not unless they knew exactly who he was. This woman clearly didn't. He should have deleted it. Instead, his fingers moved across the screen. Who are you? Across the river in Mapo, Zuri Thompson stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. Her hands shook. The message had sent. The wrong message to the wrong number at the worst possible time. Rain streaked down her apartment window while her mind raced through the previous 10 minutes. Malik seizing again in the hospital. Erin not answering for the third day straight. Her fingers fumbling in panic through her contacts. She'd meant to text her husband. She'd hit a number she didn't recognize instead. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore that. She dropped the phone face down, pressed her palms against her eyes. This was what loneliness did. 4 years in Seoul, and she still felt foreign. 4 years married, and Erin had become a stranger. Her phone buzzed. If it was urgent, you wouldn't want it ignored. Zuri's breath stopped. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Jun-seok forwarded the number to his chief analyst without looking away from the screen. Find her, he said, quietly. The profile arrived within the hour. Zuri Thompson, 31, American, freelance translator. Married to Aaron Brooks, foreign investment consultant. Brother, chronic neurological condition. Financial strain, severe. Jun-seok's jaw tightened as he scrolled further. Aaron Brooks, laundering money through shell nonprofits, connected to Park Syndicate operations, his rivals. And Zuri Thompson had no idea her husband was using her name to move dirty money through Seoul's underbelly. The woman who'd texted him in desperation was married to a man who'd made her a target. He saw her the next day outside Sinchon Hospital. Jun-seok hadn't planned it. But when his car passed and he spotted her standing near the entrance, phone pressed to her ear, shoulders tight with tension, arguing with someone who clearly wasn't listening, something in his chest shifted. She was beautiful. Not polished or performative, but real. Braids pulled into a loose bun, oversized hoodie swallowing her frame, eyes sharp even through exhaustion. When she hung up and pressed her forehead against the cold glass, he understood something dangerous. She was holding everything together alone, and everyone who should have been holding her was gone. Jun-seok told his driver to keep moving, but his mind stayed fixed on the image of her, on the urgency in that text, on the realization that the woman trying to save her brother had no idea she needed saving herself. That night, when his phone lit up with her number again, he already knew what he would do. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I know this is insane. I don't even know your name. But I need help. Jun-seok closed his eyes. Tell me what's urgent. And with those 4 words, he made a choice that would dismantle empires, shatter loyalties, and prove that sometimes destiny doesn't knock. It texts the wrong number at 12:47 a.m., and everything changes. I need you tonight. It's urgent. Kang Jun-seok stared at the message glowing in the darkness of his penthouse office, and for the first time in years, felt something he didn't recognize. Not desire, not curiosity, concern. The words carried weight, the kind that came from desperation, not seduction. At 36, he'd built an empire on reading people through what they didn't say. This woman wasn't playing games. She was drowning. Outside, Seoul sprawled beneath him like a kingdom he'd conquered through calculation and control. They called him the Auditor, the man who knew everyone's secrets, the one you paid before you even thought about crossing him. But this stranger didn't know who he was, and somehow, that mattered. Who are you? He hit send before logic could interfere. Across the city, Zuri Thompson watched her phone like it might explode. Wrong number. God, of all the nights to panic text the wrong person, of all the moments to let exhaustion win. Malik was back in the hospital. Aaron hadn't been home in 3 days. The bills were stacking up like accusations, and she'd just sent her most vulnerable moment to a complete stranger. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore that. She waited. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, too much like her life had become. If it was urgent, you wouldn't want it ignored. Something in her chest cracked open, not fear, not quite hope, but something close to both. She didn't respond, but she didn't block the number either. 12:47 a.m. Unknown number. I need you tonight. It's urgent. Please. Kang Jun-seok read it 3 times. In his world, desperation was currency. Fear was leverage. Urgency meant someone had made a mistake and was about to pay for it. But this felt different. He sat alone in his office, high above the Han River. The city below a web of connections he'd spent 15 years weaving. The Auditor, they called him. Not a title, a warning. He didn't just control Seoul's underworld. He knew it. Every transaction, every betrayal, every secret that could end a life or start a war. People who texted him knew exactly what they were asking for. This woman didn't. Who are you? Zuri Thompson felt her stomach drop to the floor. Wrong number. Of course, it was the wrong number. Because nothing in her life could just work anymore, could it? Not Malik's health, not Aaron's promises, not even a simple text to her own husband. I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore that. She should have left it there. But the response came fast. If it was urgent, you wouldn't want it ignored. And that's when Zuri realized whoever she'd just texted wasn't the kind of person who ignored anything. Jun-seok had the information in under an hour. Zuri Thompson, translator, married, American, brother hospitalized. Then the part that changed everything. Husband, Aaron Brooks, money launderer, Park Syndicate operations. His rivals had their hooks in her, and she didn't even know it. When he saw her outside the hospital the next day, exhausted, arguing with someone on the phone, trying so hard to hold everything together, Jun-seok made a decision that would cost him. He would answer the message. He would protect her. And when her world finally collapsed, he would be the one standing between her and the fall. Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating story. Before we continue, please kindly help subscribe to the channel, like the video and comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end. Now let's continue with our story. The mistake had been made, the connection formed. But to understand how a wrong number at midnight could unravel 2 empires and rebuild 2 lives, you need to know who they were before that message and what they were running from. Zuri sent 3 more messages in rapid succession. Please delete that. I'm mortified. It was meant for my husband. I'm blocking this number now. Sorry again. She didn't block it. Her thumb hovered over the option for a full minute before she set the phone down and pressed her palms against her burning face. Somewhere in Seoul, a stranger knew she was desperate enough to beg. The humiliation felt physical. Her phone stayed silent. Small mercies. Across the river, Jun Seok read her messages with the clinical precision he applied to everything. No manipulation in the phrasing, no attempt to leverage the mistake into conversation, just genuine embarrassment and a quick exit. Most people who contacted him, intentionally or otherwise, wanted something. Money. Protection. Access. This woman wanted to disappear. That made her interesting. He forwarded the number to Min Jun, his chief analyst. Everything, quietly. Min Jun's eyebrows lifted fractionally, the closest he came to showing surprise. Time frame? 1 hour. Min Jun nodded and left without questions. In Jun Seok's organization, curiosity about his motives was a liability people didn't risk twice. The file arrived at 2:03 a.m., Zuri Thompson, age 31. Nationality, American occupation. Freelance translator, community liaison for NGOs, duration in Seoul. 4 years marital status, married to Aaron Brooks. Jun Seok scrolled through her work history. Small nonprofits focused on refugee integration, women's shelters, educational programs. The kind of work that paid poorly and demanded everything. Her client list read like a catalog of genuine causes, not the sanitized fronts that usually crossed his desk. Then he reached the medical records. Brother. Malik Thompson, 28. Diagnosis, epilepsy, drug-resistant. Hospitalized 7 times in 18 months. Current admission, status epilepticus. The hospital bills were staggering. Her bank account was hemorrhaging. Every deposit she made disappeared within days. Rent, medical payments, debt service. She was drowning in slow motion. Jun Seok's jaw tightened as he opened the section on Aaron Brooks. Occupation. Foreign investment consultant employer, Horizon Bridge Capital. The name meant nothing to most people. To Jun Seok, it lit up like a flare. Horizon Bridge was a shell. One of Park Sung-ho's many corporate ghosts, designed to move money through legitimate-looking channels. Aaron Brooks wasn't a consultant. He was a launderer, processing funds through fake nonprofit partnerships. And Zuri's name appeared on documents she'd almost certainly never seen. Partnership agreements, witness signatures. Articles of incorporation for charities that existed only on paper. They were using her credentials, her reputation, her American passport to legitimize their operations. If the authorities ever investigated, she'd be the one holding the bag. Jun Seok leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. This was Park's style. Recruit someone clean, bury them in paperwork they didn't understand, then activate the trap when convenient. Aaron probably thought he was clever, using his wife's nonprofit connections to build his cover. The fool had no idea he'd just painted a target on her back. Jun Seok should have closed the file, forwarded it to his legal team, used Aaron's exposure as leverage against Park's operations. Instead, he found himself staring at Zuri's photo, a professional headshot from some NGO website. Warm smile, intelligent eyes. The kind of face that suggested she still believed people were fundamentally good. Seoul would cure her of that soon enough. He should disengage. This wasn't his problem. She wasn't his responsibility. But that message, "I need you tonight. It's urgent," kept echoing in his mind. Not the words themselves, but what they revealed. A woman so isolated, she'd reached out to the wrong person in desperation. A woman whose husband had left her exposed to dangers she couldn't even see. Jun Seok made his decision with the same cold calculation he applied to everything. He wouldn't interfere. Not yet, but he would watch. The next afternoon, his driver took an unusual route through Sinchon. Purely coincidental, Jun Seok told himself. The fact that it passed Asin Medical Center was irrelevant. Then he saw her. Zuri stood near the hospital entrance, phone pressed to her ear, shoulders rigid with tension. Even from a distance, he could read the exhaustion in her posture, the way she leaned against the wall like it was the only thing holding her upright. She was arguing with someone. Her free hand gestured sharply, then dropped to her side in defeat. When she hung up and pressed her forehead against the cold glass, something in Junseok's chest tightened. She looked like she was carrying the weight of the world, and no one was there to help her hold it. "Keep driving," he told his driver. But his mind stayed fixed on the image of her, alone, exhausted, unaware that the life she was fighting so hard to save was built on foundations already crumbling. Junseok had built his empire on knowing when to act and when to wait. For now, he would wait. But he would be ready when her world finally collapsed. Because it would. It always did. And when it happened, she would need someone who knew how to survive the fall. The call came at 4:47 a.m. Zuri's phone lit up the darkness with a single word. Hospital. She was dressed and out the door in 3 minutes, her hands shaking so badly she could barely lock the apartment behind her. The taxi ride to Asan Medical Center felt like moving through water. Everything slow and distorted while her mind screamed faster, faster, faster. Malik had seized again. Worse this time. Status epilepticus. The night resident explained in careful English. Continuous seizure activity. They'd administered emergency medication, but his brain was swelling. They needed to transfer him to the ICU, run more tests, possibly surgery. "How much?" Zuri heard herself ask. The resident looked uncomfortable. "The billing department opens at 9, but you should prepare for—" He named a figure that made her vision blur. She nodded like she understood, like she had that kind of money, like her bank account wasn't already screaming in the red. "Where's your husband?" a nurse asked gently. "You shouldn't be alone right now." Zuri pulled out her phone. 4 missed calls to Aaron, 2 voicemails, 3 texts, all unanswered. "He's traveling," she lied. "For work." The nurse's expression said she'd heard that before. Too many times. By 9 a.m., Zuri had been awake for 32 hours straight. The billing clerk spoke in numbers that stopped making sense. Deposits required, payment plans, insurance maximums already exceeded. Forms appeared in front of her. She signed without reading, her signature getting shakier with each page. "Mrs. Brooks, we'll need a deposit of $15,000 by tomorrow to proceed with—" "I understand." Zuri's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Can I have until noon?" The clerk's face softened with pity. "Of course." Zuri walked outside because the fluorescent lights were making her nauseous. Or maybe it was the panic. Hard to tell anymore. She tried Aaron again. Straight to voicemail. She tried her parents in Atlanta. They'd already sent everything they could last month. She tried the NGO she worked with most. They'd advanced her 3 months' pay already. The morning air was cold against her face. Her phone felt heavy in her hand. She scrolled through her contacts, a depressing catalog of people she'd already exhausted, favors already called in, bridges already burned. Then she stopped on a number with no name attached. The stranger from 3 nights ago. The one who'd said if it was urgent, you wouldn't want it ignored. This was insane. She didn't know him, didn't know anything except that he'd responded to her mortifying mistake with something that felt like actual concern. Desperation had a way of making insane feel reasonable. Her finger hovered over the number. What kind of person calls a stranger to beg for money? The kind whose brother might die, another voice answered. Zuri pressed call before she could stop herself. Junseok answered on the second ring. "I'm sorry," Zuri said immediately, the words tumbling out. I know this is insane. I know I have no right. I don't even know your name. But I need help. Silence. Long enough that she thought he'd hung up. Then, tell me what's urgent. His voice was calm, steady, nothing like the panic screaming through her veins. My brother, he's in the ICU. They need W15,000 by noon or they'll... Her voice cracked. I've tried everything. Everyone. I just need... I don't know what I need. A loan? A miracle? Something. Which hospital? Asan Medical Center. Sinchon. Your brother's name? Malik Thompson. Another pause. Zuri pressed her forehead against the cold glass wall, waiting for him to tell her what everyone eventually told her. I'm sorry, but I can't. It's handled, he said instead. What? The fees. They'll be paid within the hour. Zuri's legs nearly gave out. I can't. I'll pay you back. I promise. I'll set up a payment plan. We'll discuss terms later. Right now, go be with your brother. I don't understand. Why would you... Because you asked. His tone shifted, something almost gentle beneath the control. And because no one should have to choose between debt and family. The line went dead. Zuri stood frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, trying to process what had just happened. A stranger, someone whose name she didn't even know, had just offered her a lifeline without hesitation, without conditions, without making her feel small. 40 minutes later, the billing clerk called her back to the desk, confusion clear on her face. Mrs. Brooks, there's been a development. An anonymous donor has covered your brother's ICU costs and arranged for Dr. Shin from Busan to consult on his case. He's one of the best neurologists in Korea. Who? Zuri whispered. The clerk shook her head. Anonymous means anonymous. But someone is watching out for your family. Relief crashed through Zuri like a wave, so intense it hurt. Then came the fear. She'd just accepted help from a man she didn't know. A man who could pay hospital bills with a phone call. A man who'd arranged specialist consultations like it was nothing. What kind of man helps without asking anything in return? And more terrifying, what will he ask for later? But as Zuri walked back to Malik's room, watching the medical team prepare for Dr. Shin's arrival, she realized something that made her hands shake all over again. She didn't care. Whatever price came later, her brother was alive now, and that was worth anything. Dr. Shin's consultation bought Malik 3 weeks of stability. 3 weeks where Zuri could breathe without her chest feeling like it might cave in. 3 weeks where she tried not to think about the anonymous donor who'd saved her brother's life. She failed. The stranger, she still didn't know his name, called twice. Not to collect, not to demand. Just to ask how Malik was doing. The conversations were brief, careful, like he was giving her space to decide what this was between them. Concern? Charity? Something else entirely? Meanwhile, Aaron finally came home. Where were you? Zuri asked, her voice flat with exhaustion. Singapore, I told you. He barely looked at her, moving through their apartment like a guest who couldn't wait to leave. The deal ran long. Malik almost died. That made him pause. For half a second, something like guilt flickered across his face. I'm sorry. Is he okay now? He is. No thanks to you. Aaron's jaw tightened. I'm working to keep us afloat, Zuri. Someone has to pay for all this. The irony of that statement would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. Across the city, Min Jun laid another file on Jun Seok's desk. Aaron Brooks's financial activity over the last 6 months. Jun Seok scanned the report with practiced efficiency. Shell company transactions. Non-profit fund transfers. Money moving through legitimate-looking channels that dissolved under scrutiny like sugar in water. Then he reached the document signatures. Every partnership agreement bore Zuri's name, her supposed verification. Her credentials lending legitimacy to operations she'd never touched. "These are forgeries," Jun-seok said quietly. "Sophisticated ones," Min-jun confirmed. "But yes, the handwriting analysis suggests someone practiced her signature extensively. Probably from documents she actually signed, employment contracts, lease agreements." Jun-seok's fingers tightened on the file. "And if the authorities investigate, she's the first person they'll arrest. American citizen with non-profit connections, perfect cover story. Brooks disappears, she takes the fall. How much has he moved through her name? $8.2 billion, about $6 million USD. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Park Sung-ho's operations were more deeply entrenched than Jun-seok had realized, and Aaron Brooks had gift-wrapped his own wife as the scapegoat. "Does she know?" Min-jun asked. Jun-seok thought about Zuri outside the hospital, exhausted and alone, about the desperation in her voice when she'd called him, about the way she'd promised to pay him back for saving her brother. She had no idea she was already drowning. "No," he said finally. "She doesn't know." "Are you going to tell her?" Jun-seok closed the file. "I have to." Zuri was sorting through mail when she found it, a bank statement addressed to her for an account she'd never opened. The balance made her stomach drop. $47,000. Multiple deposits from organizations she recognized, NGOs she'd worked with, refugee programs she'd helped coordinate. But she'd never received this money, never authorized these transfers. Her hands shook as she dug through the pile of papers Aaron had left scattered on his desk. More statements. Partnership agreements with her signature on documents she'd never seen. Consulting fees paid to accounts in her name. "What the hell is this?" she whispered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "We need to talk. In person. It's about your husband." Zuri's blood turned cold. She knew that number. The stranger who'd paid Malik's bills. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows what Aaron is really doing. And why you're in danger." They met in a hotel lounge in Gangnam. Neutral territory, public enough to feel safe. Zuri arrived first, clutching a folder of documents she'd found, her mind spinning with questions that all led to the same terrifying answer. Aaron had used her, was still using her. When Jun-seok walked in, recognition hit her like a physical blow. She'd seen him before, outside the hospital that day, watching from a car. Tall, sharp-featured, wearing authority like a second skin. This was the man who'd saved her brother. Zuri Thompson. He said her name like he'd said it before, many times, in conversations she wasn't part of. "You know who I am?" "I know a lot about you." He sat across from her, his dark eyes scanning her face with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "More than you know about yourself, apparently." Zuri pushed the folder across the table. "Are these real?" Jun-seok opened it, scanning documents he'd already seen. "Yes." "Did I sign them?" "No, but someone who studied your signature very carefully did." The confirmation somehow made it worse. Zuri pressed her hands flat against the table to stop them from shaking. "How much money?" "About $6 million USD, moved through shell non-profits tied to criminal operations. Your name is on every transaction." The room tilted. "I'll go to prison. If the authorities investigate before we move, yes, you'll be the obvious target. American, non-profit connections. Perfect cover story." "We?" Her voice came out sharp. "Who are you? Really?" Jun-seok leaned back, something unreadable crossing his face. Someone who operates in the same world your husband does. Different side, different methods, but the same world. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman who understands how power actually works in Seoul. He paused. And right now, I'm the only person who can keep you out of prison. Zuri's laugh came out broken. Why? Why would you help me? For the first time, Junseok's carefully controlled expression softened. Just slightly. Just enough. Because when you texted me that night, you were real. Authentic. Everyone in my world wants something from me. You just wanted help for someone you loved. He met her eyes. That matters. I don't understand. You don't need to. Junseok stood, buttoning his jacket with precise movements. What you need to understand is this. Aaron has made you a target. His associates will use you or eliminate you depending on which serves them better. The authorities will prosecute you whether you're guilty or not. Then I'm finished. Not if I protect you. Why would you do that? Junseok paused at her question, something fierce and final settling in his expression. I protect what matters to me. And right now, his eyes held hers. You matter. The words hung between them like a promise and a threat all at once. The black sedan appeared on Tuesday. Zuri noticed it parked across from the language academy where she taught. Tinted windows, engine idling, no one getting in or out. She told herself it was nothing. Seoul had millions of black cars. But it was there again on Wednesday. And Thursday. Friday, it followed her to the hospital. By Saturday, when she found an envelope slipped under her apartment door with no return address, her hands were shaking too badly to open it immediately. She made tea first, sat down, breathed. Inside was a single photograph. Her and Malik outside Asan Medical Center. Someone had drawn a red circle around both their faces. No words, no demands, just a message that said, "We see you. We can reach you." Zuri's phone was in her hand before conscious thought caught up. "They know where I live," she said when Junseok answered. No greeting, no preamble. Silence. Then, "Are you home now?" "Yes." "Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. I'm sending someone." "Who are?" 20 minutes. His name is Minjun. He'll show you identification." The line went dead. Minjun arrived in 18 minutes. A lean man with sharp eyes who showed her a badge she didn't recognize before sweeping her apartment with practiced efficiency. He found the camera behind her bedroom smoke detector in under 5 minutes. Zuri felt her stomach heave. "How long has it been there?" she whispered. "Weeks, probably. Since before the hospital incident." Minjun's expression was professional, empty. "They've been watching you for a while, Mrs. Brooks." "Who?" "People who want to make sure you stay compliant, or disappear if you don't." He removed 3 more devices before he finished. One in the living room, one near her desk, one in the bathroom. Each discovery made Zuri feel more violated, more exposed. "Mr. Kang wants you moved to a secure location tonight," Minjun said. "Somewhere they can't reach you." "I can't just leave. I have work. Malik needs—" "Your brother is already being moved to a private facility with 24-hour security. Mr. Kang arranged it this afternoon." Zuri's chest tightened. "He can't just make decisions for me." "He's making decisions that will keep you alive." Minjun's tone softened fractionally. "You can be angry about the methods later. Right now, pack a bag." The secure location was a high-rise apartment in Hanamdong with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Minimalist, expensive. The kind of place Zuri had only seen in magazines. Junseok was waiting when she arrived, standing by the windows with his back to her. He turned as Minjun left, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost uncertain. I know you're angry, he said before she could speak. You moved my brother without asking me. He was vulnerable, so were you. You bugged my apartment. They did. I removed the surveillance. You decided where I would live. I gave you options. This was the safest. Zuri's voice cracked. You don't get to make these choices for me. Then what would you have chosen? Junseok's control slipped, just enough to let frustration show. To stay in an apartment they were monitoring? To pretend the threats would go away if you ignored them? To handle this alone? I don't want your world! The words came out raw, desperate. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted my family to be safe. I wanted a normal life. Your life stopped being normal the moment Aaron signed your name to documents that made you complicit in money laundering. Junseok moved closer, his voice quieter, but no less intense. Whether you want it or not, you're in this world now. The only question is whether you survive it. Zuri felt tears burn behind her eyes. I don't want power. I don't want protection bought with violence. I just want... Her voice broke. I just want to stop being afraid. Something in Junseok's expression shifted. The hard edges softened, revealing something underneath she hadn't seen before. Something that looked almost like pain. Then let me be the wall, he said quietly. Between you and them. Between you and the fear. You don't have to be part of my world. You don't have to understand it or accept it. Just let me stand between you and everything that wants to hurt you. Why? Zuri whispered. Why does this matter to you? Junseok was close enough now that she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried as carefully as armor. Because everyone in my life wants something from me. Power, money, access, protection. His jaw tightened. You're the first person in 15 years who asked me for help just to save someone you loved. Not for yourself, not for gain. Just... He stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his face. You reminded me that people like you still exist, and I won't let them destroy you for someone else's crimes. The silence stretched between them, charged, fragile, full of things neither could say. I'm scared, Zuri admitted. I know. Not just of them, of you, of what it means to let you protect me. That's smart. Junseok's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. Fear keeps you careful, but fear shouldn't keep you alone. Zuri looked out at the city, millions of lights, millions of lives, all of them safer than hers right now. Okay, she whispered. Be the wall. Across Seoul, in an apartment in Gangnam, Aaron Brooks stared at his phone with growing dread. The message was simple. Your wife is under Kang Junseok's protection now. Whatever you're planning, stop. Aaron's hands shook as he forwarded the message to his handler. 3 minutes later, his phone rang. You told me she didn't know anyone. Park Sung-ho's voice was cold. You said she was isolated. She was. She is. I don't know how... Kang Junseok doesn't protect random people. Which means either you're lying about what your wife knows, or she's become valuable to him for another reason. What do I do? The silence on the other end felt like a death sentence. Nothing, for now. But Brooks... Park's voice dropped to something deadly. If she becomes a liability, she becomes disposable. Make sure she understands that. The line went dead. Aaron stared at his phone, mind racing. Zuri had somehow connected with the most dangerous man in Seoul's underworld. And Aaron had no idea whether that meant she was finally safe, or if he'd just lost whatever leverage kept him alive. Aaron made 3 phone calls before dawn. The first was to his handler, Park Sung-ho. I can fix this. Let me talk to her. She'll cooperate if I... You've already proven you can't control your wife, Brooks. Why would we trust you now? The second call was to a lawyer in Singapore. How quickly can you move money offshore? Everything. I need to disappear. With the current scrutiny on your accounts? 2 weeks minimum. Aaron didn't have 2 weeks. The third call was to Zuri. It went straight to voicemail. He tried twice more. Same result. His phone buzzed with an incoming message from an unknown number. Stop calling her. You've done enough damage. Aaron's blood ran cold. He knew that tone, knew what it meant when men like Kang Jun-seok started paying attention to your movements. He should run. Right now. Just disappear before... His apartment door opened. Min-jun stood in the doorway, expression empty. Mr. Kang would like a word. Across the city, Zuri woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, panic seized her. Wrong room, wrong bed, wrong life. Then memory caught up. Safe house. Protection. Jun-seok. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from Aaron. All blocked now. Min-jun had handled it yesterday. She should feel guilty about the relief that brought. She didn't. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. She found Jun-seok in the main room, surrounded by monitors and papers, looking like he hadn't slept. "What are you doing?" she asked. He glanced up, something weary in his expression. "Ending this." "Ending what?" "The threat." He gestured to the screens showing financial data, legal documents, surveillance feeds. "Your husband's operation, Park's network, all of it." Zuri moved closer, trying to make sense of the information flowing across the monitors. Bank accounts draining, assets freezing, corporate registrations dissolving. "How are you doing this?" "I told you, I protect what matters to me." Jun-seok's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was describing weather instead of dismantling an entire criminal network. Park's operation relied on legitimate fronts, nonprofits, investment firms, consulting agencies. Remove the legitimacy, and the whole structure collapses. And Aaron is currently explaining to Park why he lost control of his wife. Jun-seok pulled up another screen. By tonight, every shell company your name was attached to will be flagged for investigation. But the evidence trail will lead to Aaron and Park, not you. Zuri felt dizzy. "You're framing them." "I'm exposing them. There's a difference." He finally looked at her, really looked at her. "They committed the crimes. I'm just making sure the right people pay for them. How many operations are you taking down?" 17 shell companies, 42 fraudulent accounts, $23 billion in laundered funds. He paused. "And one very angry rival who thought he could threaten you without consequences." The scale of it staggered her. This wasn't protection. This was controlled demolition. Surgical. Precise. Devastating. "People will lose everything," Zuri whispered. "People who built empires on exploiting others." "Yes." Jun-seok's expression hardened. "And people who thought they could use you as a scapegoat. Also, yes. This is because of me. This is because they made you a target." He stood, moving to face her. "I would have moved against Park eventually. You just gave me a reason to make it personal." Zuri stared at the monitors, watching financial empires crumble in real time. "I didn't want this. I didn't want to be the reason people..." "You're not the reason. You're the excuse I needed." Jun-seok's voice softened. "There's a difference between causing destruction and being the catalyst that finally makes someone act on justice they've been planning for years. Is this justice? Or revenge? Does it matter? They threatened you, violated your privacy, tried to destroy your life to cover their crimes. His jaw tightened. They don't get to walk away from that. Zuri felt something twist in her chest. Fear and gratitude tangled so tightly she couldn't separate them. Who are you really? Someone who's very good at finding pressure points. Jun-seok moved closer, his presence overwhelming. Someone who knows that power isn't about violence, it's about information, timing, and knowing exactly where to apply force so everything collapses without a single shot fired. I'm afraid of you, she admitted. You should be. No hesitation, no reassurance, just honesty. I'm dangerous to people who threaten what I protect. But Zuri... His expression shifted, something almost vulnerable beneath the control. I would never use that danger against you. How do I know that? You don't. You have to choose to trust me anyway. The monitors chimed. Jun-seok glanced at them, then back to her. It's done. Park's accounts are frozen. The authorities have enough evidence to prosecute. Aaron's assets are seized. He paused. He's being given a choice: testify against Park and disappear into witness protection, or refuse and face charges for everything. What will he choose? He's already running. His passport was flagged an hour ago at Incheon Airport. He won't make it through security. Zuri should feel something: grief, anger, betrayal. Instead, she just felt empty. My marriage is over. Your marriage ended when he forged your signature on money laundering documents. Jun-seok's voice was gentle. I just made sure it couldn't hurt you anymore. By evening, Aaron Brooks was in custody. By midnight, Park Sung-ho's operation was front-page news. By dawn, 17 people had been arrested, and $23 billion in criminal assets had been recovered. And through it all, Jun-seok sat with Zuri while she processed the fact that her life as she knew it had ended. What happens now? She asked as the sun rose over Seoul. Jun-seok looked at her with something that might have been hope. Now, you decide who you want to be. And I make sure no one ever uses your fear against you again. Zuri stared at the city below. Vast, indifferent, full of people whose lives hadn't just been dismantled and rebuilt in 72 hours. I don't know who I am without all of this, she whispered. Then let's find out together. And for the first time in 4 years, Zuri felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. The silence was the hardest part. 3 weeks after the arrests, after the news cycle moved on, after Aaron's extradition hearing concluded with him accepting witness protection in exchange for testimony, 3 weeks after her entire life imploded and rebuilt itself, Zuri woke up to quiet. No threats, no surveillance, no panic calls from hospitals, just silence. And somehow, that was more terrifying than everything that came before. Malik was thriving. Dr. Shin's treatment protocol had reduced his seizures to almost nothing. The private facility Jun-seok had arranged felt more like a wellness center than a hospital. Sunlight, gardens, staff who knew Malik's name and actually cared. You look tired, Malik said during her visit, his voice stronger than it had been in months. I'm fine. Zuri. He gave her the look, the one that said he could see through every lie she'd ever told. You saved my life. Again. But who's taking care of you? She didn't have an answer. The safe house had become her cage. Beautiful, secure, suffocating. Jun-seok had stopped coming by after the first week. Not disappeared. She could feel his protection like a presence. Min-jun checking in daily, security detail she never saw but knew was there. But Jun-seok himself had pulled back. Giving her space, she realized. Proving he wasn't a captor. Wasn't controlling her. Wasn't demanding anything for what he'd done. She should be grateful. She was grateful. but mostly, she was lonely. "You need to figure out who you are now," her therapist said. Jun Seok had arranged that too. Trauma specialist. Someone who understood what it meant to have your life detonated and survive the blast. "I don't know who I am," Zuri admitted. "I was Aaron's wife, Malik's sister, the strong one, the one who held everything together." Her voice cracked. "Now Aaron's gone, Malik's stable, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be." "What do you want to be?" The question sat in her chest like a weight. She started small. Reached out to the NGOs she'd worked with before. Updated her translator profiles. Took walks through neighborhoods she'd been too afraid to explore, when every shadow might have been a threat. Seoul felt different now. Not foreign anymore. Just hers, somehow. Min Jun appeared beside her one afternoon in Hanamdong, silent as always. "Mr. Kang wanted me to give you this." He handed her a set of keys. "The apartment, it's yours. Paid for 2 years, no conditions." "I can't accept. He said you'd say that." Min Jun's expression remained neutral. "He also said to tell you that protection doesn't come with strings. You're free to leave whenever you want. Stay if you need to. The choice is yours." He left before she could respond. Zuri stared at the keys in her palm. Freedom felt heavier than she expected. She lasted 4 more days before she realized what was wrong. It wasn't the apartment. Wasn't the safety. Wasn't even the trauma she was processing in therapy. It was the absence. Jun Seok had given her space, had stepped back, had proven he wasn't trying to control her. And she missed him. Not his power, not his protection, though she was grateful for both. Just him. The way he listened when she spoke. The way his control slipped when he looked at her. The way he'd sat with her through that first terrible night and made her feel less alone. She'd spent 4 years with Aaron feeling invisible. 3 weeks with Junseok had made her feel seen. She found him in his office overlooking the Han River at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Min Jun had given her the address without question, like he'd been expecting this. Junseok looked up when she entered, surprise flashing across his face before control reasserted itself. "Is something wrong?" "No." Zuri closed the door behind her. "Everything's fine. Malik's stable. The apartment's perfect. I'm safe." "Good." He stood, uncertain in a way she'd never seen him. "Then what? Why did you stop coming by?" The question hung between them. "You needed space," Junseok said carefully. "Time to figure out who you are without—" He gestured vaguely. "All of this." "And did you think about what I might figure out?" His jaw tightened. "I hoped you'd figure out you deserve a life that isn't defined by crisis, by men who use you or control you or save me." "I'm not trying to save you, Zuri. I'm trying to give you the space to save yourself." She moved closer, watching his control fracture at the edges. "What if I don't want space?" "You should want it. You should want freedom from—" He stopped. Something raw in his expression. "From men like me." "Men like you," Zuri repeated the words, tasting them. "Men who answer desperate texts from strangers, who protect people without asking for anything, who dismantle criminal empires to keep someone safe. Men who operate in darkness, who solve problems through force and manipulation, who gave me back my life." Her voice was steady now, certain. "Who stepped back when I needed space, who proved that power doesn't have to mean control." Junseok looked at her like she was something dangerous, something that could hurt him in ways empires never could. "I won't trap you," he said quietly. "I know." "I won't own you." "I know that too." Then what do you want? Zuri took the final step that brought her within reach. I want to stop feeling like I'm waiting for my life to start. I want to stop being afraid of what it means to choose something for myself instead of just surviving. And what are you choosing? She held his gaze, saw the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. I'm choosing to stay, not because I'm afraid, not because I need protection. Her voice softened. Because for the first time in 4 years, I don't feel invisible. Junseok's control finally shattered. His hand came up to cup her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was. You were never invisible, he whispered. Not to me, not from the first message. And when Zuri leaned into his touch, she realized something that made her chest ache. She wasn't choosing safety. She was choosing him. Zuri signed the contract on a Thursday morning. Head translator for a coalition of refugee support organizations across Seoul. Real work. Real pay. Her name, her credentials, used for something that mattered. Congratulations, the director said, shaking her hand. Your references were impeccable. We're lucky to have you. References. Zuri almost laughed. She'd rebuilt those from scratch over the past month, reached out to every NGO she'd worked with before Aaron had contaminated her reputation, proved she'd been a victim of fraud, not a co-conspirator. It had taken weeks of phone calls, meetings, paperwork. But she'd done it herself. When she left the building, Min-jun was waiting by the car. Mr. Kang didn't arrange this, she said before he could speak. Min-jun's expression remained neutral. I know. He was very specific about not interfering with your job search. Then why are you here? Because you still have enemies, Mrs. Brooks. Having a job doesn't change that. He opened the car door. But congratulations. He'll be pleased. Zuri slid into the back seat, holding the contract against her chest, like proof of something she'd almost forgotten. She was capable of building a life that was hers. She found Junseok at the safe house that evening. He'd started coming by again, carefully, never assuming, always asking first. They'd fallen into a rhythm over the past weeks. Dinner, conversation, the kind of careful intimacy between people learning to trust what they were becoming. I got the job, she announced. His face transformed. Not quite a smile, but close. I heard. Min-jun said you were very clear that I had nothing to do with it. You didn't. No. He moved closer, something proud in his expression. You did that yourself. It feels good, scary, but good. Zuri set her bag down, suddenly nervous. I've been thinking about what comes next. Next? For us, this, she gestured between them. Whatever we're doing, I need to know what it is. Junseok's control slipped, vulnerability showing through. What do you want it to be? Something real? Something that isn't about crisis or protection or... She stopped, gathering courage. I need to know who you really are. Not just the man who saved me, all of it. He was quiet for a long moment, then... Sit, please. Junseok told her everything. About growing up in Busan, watching his father's legitimate business destroyed by men who operated outside the law. About learning that survival meant understanding power's true language. About building an empire on information instead of violence. On knowing everyone's pressure points before they knew yours. I'm not innocent, he said quietly. I've hurt people, destroyed lives, made choices I can't take back. Have you killed anyone? No, but I've ruined people so completely they wished I had. His dark eyes met hers. I won't lie to you about what I am. I operate in shadows because that's where real power lives. I manipulate, coerce, control. Everyone except you. Why? Because you're the first person in 15 years who saw me as just a person, not a tool, not a threat, just someone who might help. His voice roughened. You reminded me that not everything has to be transactional, that sometimes protection can be its own reward. Zuri moved closer, her heart pounding. What are you offering me? Partnership, not possession. Junshuk's hands clenched at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. I want you in my life, not as someone I saved, not as someone who owes me, as an equal who chose to stay. Your world is dangerous. It is. People will always see me as leverage against you. They will, which is why you'll always have protection, not because you're weak, but because you matter to me. What if I can't handle it? What if your world is too dark? Junsuk finally closed the distance between them, his hand coming up to cup her face with devastating gentleness. Then you leave. No conditions, no consequences. The apartment is yours. The protection continues. You walk away, and I make sure you stay safe, even if it's from a distance. You'd let me go? I'd hate it, but yes. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Love that holds someone hostage isn't love. It's just another form of control. The word hung between them. Love, raw and new and terrifying. Is that what this is? Zuri whispered. For me? Yes. No hesitation, no games. I fell in love with you the moment you apologized for that first text. So desperate to not be a burden, so determined to handle everything alone. His voice dropped. I wanted to prove you didn't have to be. Zuri's hands came up to grip his jacket, anchoring herself. I'm terrified. Of me? Of how much I want this. Want you. After everything with Aaron, I swore I'd never... Her voice broke. I swore I'd never let someone have this much power over me again. Then don't give me power over you. Keep your independence, your work, your choices. Junshuk's forehead pressed against hers. Just let me love you while you build the life you deserve. What if I choose wrong? Then we figure it out together. Zuri pulled back just enough to see his face, sharp features softened by vulnerability, control fractured by hope, power tempered by genuine care. This man had dismantled empires to keep her safe, had given her space to heal, had offered her freedom even when it cost him. She'd spent 4 years feeling invisible. 3 months with him had taught her what it meant to be seen. I choose you, she whispered. Not because you saved me, because you showed me I was worth saving. Junseok's kiss was careful, reverent, like he was handling something precious that might break. Zuri melted into it, into him, into the terrifying certainty that this was real. When they finally pulled apart, she was breathless. What happens now? She asked, the question that had haunted her for months finally finding voice. Junshuk smiled, genuine, unguarded, beautiful. Now, you build the life you want, and I get to watch you become everything you were always meant to be. And us? We figure it out together. No scripts, no guarantees. His hand found hers, fingers interlacing. Just 2 people who found each other in the dark and chose to stay. Zuri looked at their joined hands, her brown skin against his, her wedding ring long gone, her future finally her own. Together, she echoed. And for the first time since that desperate text at 12:47 a.m., Zuri Thompson felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not saved, not trapped, just loved. 6 months later, Zuri woke to sunlight streaming through windows that finally felt like home. Not the safe house in Hanam-dong, though she still kept that apartment, a reminder of where she'd rebuilt herself. This was different. Theirs. A penthouse overlooking the Han River that Jun Seok had insisted she help choose, furnish, make into something that belonged to both of them. "You're awake," Jun Seok murmured beside her, his voice still rough with sleep. "Malik's discharge is today." She turned to face him, still marveling that this was real. "I can't believe it's finally happening." "He's worked hard. You both have." 8 months since that first seizure. 8 months of treatment, therapy, medication adjustments. Dr. Shin had called it a minor miracle. Zuri called it her brother finally getting the care he deserved. "He wants to meet you properly," she said. "Not as the anonymous donor, as—" She paused, still getting used to the words. "As the man I'm with." Jun Seok's hand found hers beneath the sheets. "I'd like that." The discharge went smoothly. Malik looked healthier than he had in years. Weight back, color in his face, that spark of humor Zuri had almost forgotten he possessed. "So, you're the guy?" Malik said when Jun Seok arrived, studying him with protective brother intensity. "I am." Jun Seok extended his hand. "It's good to finally meet you properly, Malik. You saved my life. Our lives." Malik's handshake was firm. "But if you hurt my sister, Seoul isn't big enough for you to hide." Jun Seok's mouth curved slightly. "Fair enough." Zuri rolled her eyes. "Can we save the threatening for after we get him home?" "This is me being friendly," Malik protested, but his eyes were warm, grateful. Later, watching Jun Seok help Malik settle into the apartment they'd found near the university where he'd start classes next semester, Zuri felt something settle in her chest. This was what family was supposed to feel like. The charity gala was Zuri's idea. "You can't hide forever," she'd told Jun Seok a month ago. "People know about us anyway. We might as well make it official." "You understand what that means? The attention, the scrutiny. I understand that I'm not ashamed of loving you, and I'm tired of pretending we're something we're not." So they went public. Not dramatically, Jun Seok wasn't that kind of man, but deliberately. A fundraiser for refugee services, Zuri's work at the center of it, Jun Seok's foundation as a major sponsor. When they walked in together, the whispers started immediately. The auditor and the woman he'd protected, Seoul's underworld and the NGO translator, power and principle. "They're staring," Zuri murmured. "Let them." Jun Seok's hand settled at the small of her back, possessive but gentle. "You have nothing to hide." And she didn't. Not anymore. Late that night, after the speeches and donations and carefully polite conversations with people who couldn't quite figure out what to make of them, Zuri and Jun Seok stood on their balcony, watching the city breathe beneath them. "Do you ever think about that night?" Zuri asked. "The message?" "Every day. What would have happened if I'd texted the right number? If Aaron had answered?" Jun Seok pulled her closer, his chin resting on top of her head. "You would have kept trying to save a marriage that was already dead. Aaron would have kept using you. Eventually, everything would have collapsed anyway, but you would have faced it alone. Instead, I texted a stranger. Instead, you texted me." His arms tightened around her. "And I couldn't let you go." Zuri turned in his embrace, looking up at the man who'd answered a desperate plea at 12:47 a.m. and changed everything. His sharp features were softer now, open in ways she knew he only showed her. The control was still there, would always be there, but tempered by love. I was so ashamed that night, she admitted, mortified that I'd sent something so vulnerable to a stranger. And now? Now I'm grateful I did. Grateful you answered. Grateful you saw someone worth protecting when I couldn't even see that myself. You were always worth it, Zuri. You just needed someone to prove it to you. She kissed him then. Slow, deep, full of promises they were still learning to keep. When they pulled apart, the city sparkled below them like possibilities made solid. What are you thinking? Junseok asked. That my therapist was right. I needed to figure out who I am now. Zuri smiled. And I think I finally know. Who are you? Someone who's not afraid anymore. Someone who chose love over fear. Someone who, her voice caught, who deserves to be happy. Yes, Junseok whispered against her temple. You do. In a small apartment near Hongdae, Malik Thompson scrolled through his phone and paused on a news article. Power couple. Kang Junseok and Zuri Thompson make relationship official at charity gala. The photo showed his sister smiling, really smiling, beside a man who looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Malik sent her a text. You look happy. Finally. Her response came immediately. I am. See you for lunch tomorrow? Wouldn't miss it. Love you, sis. Love you too. He set his phone down and stared at the ceiling of his new apartment. Paid for by scholarships and grants Zuri had helped him apply for. Furniture they'd picked out together. A future that finally felt possible. All because his sister had texted the wrong number one desperate night. Sometimes destiny doesn't knock politely at your door. Sometimes it doesn't announce itself with signs or miracles or careful plans. Sometimes destiny is just a message sent in panic at 12:47 a.m. Words meant for someone else, reaching exactly the person who needed to read them. A mistake that became a lifeline. A lifeline that became protection. Protection that became love. And love that proved some wrong numbers are actually right all along. Thanks so much, my dear friends, for enjoying this beautiful story till this end. If you've not subscribed, kindly subscribe now to be notified when we drop our next story. Also, like the video and comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end. Thank you.